Nerdarchy for nerds by nerds, and today I got Brent with me, Brent Critchfield of Studio Whoa.
Whoa!
And we actually originally met almost a year ago, not quite.
Yeah, that's right.
You spotted me at Origins.
Yeah. I was like, it's Dave the
Can you
Nerd.
kill something that big?
Oh no, I'm getting noise from somewheres, and I shouldn't be. There you are. I've slayed the beast. I usually have all my tabs muted, but apparently I missed one.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh no, I did. It was loud and obnoxious. I don't know if they did or not either. But yeah, because we streamed to Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube.
Oh, nice.
And like, so we had a rogue tab that we had to put down.
We're everywhere. That's awesome.
Will you guys be at Origins again this year?
Yep. Gonna be at Origins. Taking a break for PAX East, but yeah, definitely gonna be at Origins and rocking that out. And then Gamma, Gen Con as always.
As always. So I guess we should probably tell people what you do.
Yeah. So I make a crazy tactical combat card game about mutated monster goats called Gruff, and I am the designer and the kind of the one-man show for that game, along with my creative director Virginia Critchfield, who's also my spouse, and she does the illustration.
Now, like, I won't dwell on this, but I do want to bring it up just because it's some pretty serious nerd cred as far as your day job goes as well.
Oh yeah.
You worked on a ton of known brands when it comes to video games.
Yeah. I got in the industry working on well, the first thing I made, or one of the first things I made, was Hannah Montana Spotlight World Tour. So that's my claim to fame.
And there goes all your nerd cred.
everybody needs a little watermark, right? No, I worked at Disney for a bit. Then I went to Vigil Games and worked on the Darksiders franchise. Also the Warhammer 40k MMO that never actually ended up shipping, but I worked on that for a couple of years too. And then worked on Darksiders 2, and then I went over to Riot Games and worked on the art update for Summoner's Rift that for League of Legends that happened a couple of years back. Yeah.
So
and then I needed more monster goats in my life.
So I didn't even realize, like, I had seen it at the 40k credit, and I didn't really think about it. Because I just don't pay attention to video games anymore. I can't. Otherwise, I get nothing done in my life, and I'll be divorced. But
I've had to pull back on it too. Actually, I'm playing a game called Battle Chasers right now, but that's about it.
What is it? What is it like to work on a big property like that? I don't know if you're into Warhammer or not.
It's a kind of a confusing process because you're working back and forth with Games Workshop on licensing, and that can be a really confusing process, especially with Games Workshop, where we're like pull up like art that we've referenced from like the codexes, and they're like, that canon is not canon anymore.
and that's a no, sir.
That's a no. Yeah, it's fun, but you also, in a big team, like Riot was a huge team working on League of Legends, you can tend to get tunnel vision, where it's like, I'm just trying to make the one thing that I am good at as perfect as possible, and you don't really feel like you have ownership over the broader thing, which is why I like board games so much.
I just got to be able to make Cho'Gath dance. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing. Yeah, so I was, painting trees and rocks and waterfalls for a couple of years over on Summoner's Rift. That's what I did.
And then you guys also do art assets. Just that's what you do. Like
yeah. So Studio Whoa functions as an art outsource house for video game companies, and we've done that for a lot of people. Our current client is Phoenix Labs, making a game called Dauntless, which is really cool. It's going into open beta very soon, from what I understand. And yeah, it's a really rad looking project.
So do you guys do anything that's not video game related?
Well, we play a lot of D&D, a whole lot of D&D actually. So I run a campaign based on Tomb of Annihilation, the new game that just came out, and I also Virginia runs a campaign that was what started with Castle Ravenloft and is expanded into kind of like post-Strahd Castle Ravenloft.
Well, I kind of meant like if people wanted to hire you your Studio Woe to do. Oh, we're putting together a book, or we're doing whatever.
Oh yeah. We do concept art support and art support for board games and video games. So we do illustration for board games and video games. We definitely focus and specialize in environment art, but we do the whole package, especially when it comes to board games.
Cool.
So board games and video games, we do all of the above. So contact Studio Woe if you have any art needs. We can put you on our list.
There you go. I just want to get that out there real quick. But Chris asked us to know, Battle Chasers, is that based on the comic based on D&D?
Yeah, so I'm playing a game called Battle Chasers. It's actually based here in Austin, Texas. Joe Mad. So it's a video game based on the comic book that's based on D&D. But the comic book artist is the art director over there. So it's his baby. He's intricately involved in it. So he's handling it from the ground up. And he's a very famous and prolific comic book artist. Worked on everything under the sun. And is a pretty badass dude. So
nice. I want to congratulate you because you do have a Kickstarter going and you've already funded. So
yeah, we funded last night at midnight, which saying earlier is the always the way it works. Like you always get funded at 2 a.m. and you're like, I can't go to sleep until $2 more comes in. So that's what that's how it happened last night too. But not only did we fund, but we actually already hit our first stretch goal and are pretty close to hitting our second stretch goal, which is really exciting. Normally Kickstarters have a good 24 hours and then taper off a lot, and this one seems like it's getting a lot of inertia. I think it's because of the theme. It's all about plushy nightmare goats.
Yeah.
So the idea is that your dreams and nightmares get absorbed into your plushy toys until they become these animated engines of destruction called Stuffkin, and so it's about battling with these dream plushy creatures.
So are you guys going to make any plushies? That sounds like a thing you should do.
Yeah, I am working on plushies. It turns out plushies it's a complicated process. You got all sorts of safety regulations and stuff like that I don't have to deal with the card game. So yeah, it's in the future, hopefully this year, at some point. I had wanted to do a little plushie for the Kickstarter. It didn't quite come together in time, but hopefully soon.
Nice. Definitely seems like a thing. So I guess for people just finding you for the first time and I've been jumping around. I got a little bit of ADD going on. Let's start from the beginning and tell them what Battle Goats is and how you came up with that.
Yeah. So Gruff is a tactical combat card game about mutated monster goats. So the idea is that once upon a time, they're the three billy goats, Gruff, and they're trying to cross a bridge. They got stopped by this troll that wanted to eat them. But the goats outsmarted the troll, knocked him off the bridge, killed him. And when that happened, the shepherds realized, you know what, we're using our goats all wrong. What we really need to do is weaponize our goats. So using black magic and foul science, forbidden breeding practices, you've transformed your herd into the ultimate team of fighting goats called Gruffs. And one day you try to cross a bridge, and there's this other shepherd coming from the other direction with their battle goats. So, of course, you have to fight to the death. So that's what we do. Fight to the death with our battle goats.
It's the giant robot concept. If two people have a giant robot, inevitably they must fight.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to spend all of this money and time on building a giant robot, not to fight the other giant robot.
So how did you come up with the idea for Gruff?
So
were you drunk or high at the time?
Why not both? It actually started a long time ago, just as an art exercise from Virginia. She started a sketchbook. It was actually all full of mutated monster bunnies. And she did 1,300 of these mutated monster bunnies. And then one day we were at a petting zoo, and we were like, it's time to start over, trying to start a new leaf. What should we draw? And we saw these little baby goats. And we're like, we're doing monster baby goats. So she started a sketchbook full of baby goats. And while all of this was happening, in parallel, I was designing a card game. It just kind of had this engine, and eventually we were just like, why don't we squish these things together? You've got chocolate, I've got peanut butter, let's make a Reese's Pieces. So
inevitably when you get goats together, at least one of them's a jerk. Exactly. I don't know if you've observed, I don't know how much observing of goats you've done, but inevitably one of them will just headbutt the others for no reason.
Yeah. Goats are jerks, which seems like the idea that there's goat on goat conflict seems inevitable.
Yeah. My whole family, they want goats. They've been wanting goats for years. I've been able to resist.
Actually, like my wife has asked for bunnies periodically, and I saw what she did to the bunnies in the sketchbook, and I'm like, that's not right. That's
You cannot be trusted with bunnies.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
And I'm worried about what we would do with the goats, but
We one of like the early stories for my son. We were at the zoo at the petting, and we were in the petting zoo with him, and he was like 3 at the time, and my wife's like, go pet the kid. And he walks past the goat to go pet one of the other kids.
I've got a plushy goat in this set. His name's Buttons, and he's got a card called Gullible, and it reminds me of that.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually played Gruff, the core set. We played the core set when we were at PAX Unplugged, and it was actually a lot of fun. It was fairly easy to learn. It's a 2-person game, which there isn't a ton of those.
Yeah, I think it excels at 2 players. You can actually play it up to 4, but I think it's mostly a one-on-one fighting game or single player. You can actually, with the new set, which came out after Unplugged, you can actually fight troll boss fights with your herd of monster goats.
So how does that mechanic work? Actually, I know we actually gave a set of those away.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, because you gave us an advanced copy.
I did. I gave you guys some promos for. That's right. Good. Well, someone knows that. Yeah, the trolls basically work just like shepherds do. So you play just like you're fighting against a player, except for they have a behavior deck. So every turn they flip over a card, and depending on their rage, they do more and more, and so they just exponentially get stronger as the game goes on. One thing that I've heard from players that have tested it is like it actually feels like an opponent that's outsmarting you because they do unpredictable things that just kind of wreck your plans. So they're like,
this troll is so smart.
He knows what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And it's just random draws.
Yeah, it's just random draws.
Oh, that's the best. So how long have you been working on Gruffs?
We launched a Kickstarter for Gruff in 2015, but I actually started developing Gruff in 2012. So I guess it's been like 6 years now.
Labor of love.
Yeah, 4th expansion. It's going well.
So the latest one, that's not a standalone. That's another expansion, correct?
It's a standalone expansion. So basically, all you need to play Gruff is Gruff Stuff of Nightmare. So you back the Kickstarter campaign, you'll get everything you need to play Gruff until the end of time. Tons and tons of content in it. However, if you wanted to like get more deck building options and like basically more goats and shepherds to play with, you can pick up one of the older games as well. So they're basically like modular chunks of game. You don't need the older stuff to play, but if you have the other stuff, it just gives you more to play with. So
we talked a little bit before we went on air, but so no Gruffs have made it into your D&D games?
You know what? I was DMing. So in Tomb of Annihilation, we haven't. I run a Tomb of Annihilation campaign, but we did run a little like Stuff of Nightmares one-off. And what we did is we modified the bag of tricks in D&D to be the bag of Stuffkin. And so instead of pulling out like a panther or a wolf, you'd actually pull out one of these plushy nightmare goats that would like come out and like do your bidding. So. I like the idea of I've done this a couple of times with games I've been designing, is running a D&D campaign in parallel, because D&D just has this way of like lubricating your brain and forcing you to just commit to ideas, and a lot of that stuff just bleeds really well into other creative outlets.
Where do you game at? Online, home, at a store?
Oh, in my living room, like literally right behind me. I pull out a little coffee table, and we're very, very old school. We're like pencil and paper art. We're pencil and paper D&D. Like we're very low tech here. I like it that way.
We're the same, but it's because we're stupid.
You can't burn a tablet, so like. If I'm gonna burn someone's character sheet, it needs to be in paper, right?
Oh yeah, because you guys are playing Tomb of Annihilation, which is supposed to be a little more fatal for D&D 5e, and it sounds like your game is really fatal. Yeah,
it's super fatal because there's no resurrection in the campaign. We're playing meat grinder mode, which is you make death saves on a DC 15, not a DC 10, and I also, just because I'm a nice guy, forbid healing on unstable characters. So if you have to stabilize using like a medicine check before you can give them a healing potion or cure or anything like that. So we kill characters a lot.
Do you allow spare the dying?
Yeah, I do allow spare the dying, though those characters tend to die a lot that have spare the dying for some reason.
Yeah. It's like flies to honey. Like, we know he's got spare the dying. We must take him first.
Yep. Yeah, I had several players who were like, "Ooh, I found out the secret. I know how to make this work now," and they all started bringing spare the dying. And I didn't really intend to do it, but yeah, I did kill them all off. So no more spare the dying in this group. Yeah, this is actually the Urn of Inevitability, where I burn up character sheets. Just a giant pile of them in there right now. I'm almost running out of room.
Yeah, you don't let the fire burn long enough. Apparently, they need to be ash completely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't really want to add lighter fluid, considering I burn them up in my living room. So.
What could go wrong?
Yeah,
well, don't let Ted do it, because he's been known to set people's houses on fire.
Oh, has he really?
It was Easter weekend in like my last house, our last Easter there, and we had taken down like a wooden fence, so we'd been burning it. Well, he just stuffed my wood burning stove with it. The flames were shooting up the spout, and or the stack, and I came into the room and I look at the wood burning stove. I look at the fire. Then I look up at the roof and it's glowing.
Oh no!
Red. I'm like, Ted, you set my roof on fire. And yes, we do need water. We are not going to let it burn because I'm selling this house. So.
Oh no! You were trying to sell it like right then, and you lit it on fire.
It was pretty soon around that. So, fortunately, the fire never spread beyond that, and. Like, you know, it was in the Florida room, so he had to jump on the roof with a hose and spray the hose down into the spout and around it. And, yeah,
that's
Ted.
Pretty great.
Yeah, Scott, that's exactly what I said. Maybe some other things as well. I'm looking at the chat here.
Yeah.
God damn you, Ted.
Oh man, there's a whole lot of talk about skinning nulls. Is that, do you think, would you let a player skin a null?
I would. I mean, I don't think it's a particularly nice thing to do. But
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, sometimes they go off on their own and they have their own conversations in the chat. Guys, if you have any questions, just remember, nice seasoned roof. Yeah, exactly, Brian. If you have any questions, just remember to put question in front of it so we can get to them. So... You know, the character urn, that's pretty old school. You said you take the character sheet, you rip it, and then they get burned. Yep.
I light them on fire right in front of them. And you'd think that would make like a super brutal campaign. Oh, but we also do this other thing, which makes it, I don't know if it makes it's a mechanic that's brutal and unfair and not nice, but when you combine it with how fatal my game is, it actually works really well. So I've got this, it's called the Chalice of Bitter Tears. And you notice it's got a whole bunch of D6 with different colors in it. Well, those colors are aligned to stats. So there's 4 strength dice, there's 4 dex dice, there's 4 intelligence dice. And so you don't actually get to control what the stats of your character are. You just dump out the cup, and then it randomly creates basically your character. And so you're forced to play a bunch of character archetypes that you don't know, and they're not optimized. So people will go into the campaign with a character, and they're like, oh, I don't like this one. Let's let this guy get killed off. And like, I'm really excited about my next character. So, you know, it keeps things fun and exciting and all about character building, instead of being like abysmally like bleak and
well, you're still using 4-6, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, at least you didn't go 3-6.
Yeah. I know, I'm such a softie.
I know. that is a pretty old school campaign you got there running. How long is your gaming group been together?
We just started with Tomb of Annihilation, so that was like 5 months ago. So as soon as Tomb of Annihilation came out, we started it in the jungles of Chult. Though, like, as soon as they got to Tomb of Annihilation, they immediately were like, "We're chasing pirates," and I'm like, the campaign's in the jungle, like you go to the jungle and you explore tombs, right?" And they're like, "Nope, we're doing pirates." So it's been a underwater or an undersea adventure this entire time. I'm like, okay.
So are you adapting the material from Tomb of Annihilation, or are you just running your own stuff?
Well, for the whole, like, basically the first chapter of the game, I just threw Tomb of Annihilation out, and I'm like, okay, you're being chased by a kraken, and there's pirates, and they have a little list, like there's like a side blurb of like the 3 pirate ships that exist and like the crews. So they went and they fought those 3 guys, and that was like their first 5 levels. Basically, was hunting down the pirate camp at sea, and I basically had to just write the whole thing. And now they've landed and they're in the jungle again, and so like we've pulled them back on track with Tomb of Annihilation. So I actually get to use the book now. But
ooh, so how did you get them to come back?
Well, they landed eventually, and for some reason, like their pirate ships kept getting destroyed by kraken. So
they didn't get railroaded. They got kraken, huh?
They got kraken.
I guess we just weren't meant to be pirates. We're like magnets for krakens.
That's true.
That is like the most dangerous ocean sea now on the planet.
Yeah. Well, it was actually just a random table. I would just roll random encounters, and it was like elemental whirlpool to another dimension and kraken that would just come up all the time. And I'm like, all right, I'm just letting this happen. I don't care that you're level 3. We're doing this.
Oh man, that's great. I love that. There's just nothing but krakens hanging out and bathing in elemental energies.
What we had was they got boarded by a Sahagin boarding party, like the fish people, and they had a bunch of kraken eggs. And so they would like kill the kraken, like baby kraken on board, and then it would attract this kraken that would like be super furiously frenzied kraken mommy chasing the pirate ship, and they like the little kraken blood got all over the ship, and so this giant psychic terrifying kraken was pursuing him for a while, and they actually decided like, hey, we're going to scuttle this ship because it's got this kraken blood on it, and there's this other pirate ship we're going to take over. And so they did that, and then they went to the pirate city, and then they killed all the pirates, and they're like, this is our fort now.
They should have sold it. They should have sold it to someone they didn't like.
They should have. Oh, that's a good point.
Or let an enemy get it somehow. Well, sir, you sound like an evil DM. Sounds like a fun game, though.
I am. Like, I pride myself on evil. I don't know. DMing is one of those few areas in your life where you can just be like, I'm going to be evil today.
So this is a new gaming group for you, then?
Yeah. I mean, they're all friends of mine that go way, way back, but this group is fairly new. Yeah.
Okay. Were they gamers before?
Yeah. I know most of them from, actually, almost all of them through the video game industry. So yeah, 2 former coworkers of mine from Riot Games working on League of Legends, another former coworker from when I worked on Darksiders. Yeah, so it's just a big crew of old video game developer nerds. And we have this lady, Elena, that's in it, that is trying to create a D&D cookbook. So every day she shows up with the most like crazy off the wall desserts based around the theme of our previous campaign. So she had like a froghemoth cake that was like a layered green pudding cake with a chocolate froghemoth on top. She just always, her name's Elena, but we call her 11 because she always takes it to 11.
I guess she is forever in your group. I would never let her get away. Don't mind us. We're just going to tag you with this tracker. We cannot lose our delicious desserts.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Do you have pictures of the desserts?
Oh yeah, totally. I will send you a link. I have a little Facebook page where you take pictures of every desserts and every character sheet burning. So I'll send you some links when we're wrapped up here.
Yeah, I would definitely have to check that out. I'll probably share them on our Facebook page. That sounds great.
Cool.
Cool. So now that you said, you tell me where your gaming group came from, now I understand why they probably don't care about the death so much.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're used to respawning. Like, this is...
Yeah, that's like their bread and butter.
Yeah.
So, Gruff is your first game, right? That's the first game that you've made that's tabletop analog, I should say. Yeah,
that's my first analog game. Worked on over a dozen video games in total, though most of them are like Hannah Montana, where I don't really want to talk about.
Well, you got paid.
Yeah, I got paid.
Well, I guess that's one of the things we were talking about before, because that's like a thing that a lot of like nerdy kids want to do when they grow up. They want to work on video games, and most of them are never going to touch a video game other than to play it. So So that's pretty cool.
It's a tough industry to get into. I definitely feel really lucky and blessed to have got into it. It's funny, like after doing it for a while, you're working on huge teams, working on someone else's vision, kind of a lot of the time. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a break from this and just try to make a thing about monster goats. So.
And you've been doing it for a little while, so it seems to be working.
Yeah. I mean, we still do like the freelance work for video games on the side, but yeah.
I mean, board games is also kind of tough to break into as well. I mean, we have some friends that have it took them a while to start, but once they did, they were really successful with it. Like,
oh, nice.
They start like I guess it's probably because of the foundation they started with. Like, they made a game Kobolds that never went anywheres. They still have it, and it's still like one of the best games they've made, but. They couldn't get it. They haven't been able to get anyone to pick it up, and they haven't decided to publish it themselves yet.
Oh, I should totally go indie. I love being indie.
But
such a cool time.
But that being said, so they spend all this time like shopping it around, networking it, working on other games, and they've actually won awards for their game Resistor.
Oh yeah,
they've been featured on Game the Game and. They have stuff on Amazon and ThinkGeek now. I think Ninth Level. I don't know if they're with Ninth. One of theirs is with Ninth Level or not. Because I have another friend who has a different card game that might be with them. It gets confusing. They're all intermingled in my mind now. But like they put a lot of like groundwork in going to convention after convention and meeting people. So when they finally launched Resistor, they kicked and did fairly well. They got picked up by IDW to just make Centipede because they got the license to a bunch of the Atari games to make board games, so they did Centipede for that.
I've seen that one.
And then I always have this like off to the side here. I'm super proud of them for this one. They did.
Isn't that the coolest box ever?
Yeah, you familiar with the game Laser Riders?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And like the Kickstarter for it was so great. Like they did an old school messed up video.
yeah, with like the scam lines on it.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, and it looked like it was all off of like a Trapper Keeper cover from like the 80s.
Yes.
Yep, I totally remember that.
Yeah, when they made that game, and I always say it when we talk about board games, but when they made that game and they were beta testing it and we got to play it, I was like, how is this not already a thing? Yeah,
you would think that this is like a ripe space. Though I've noticed like the 70s, 80s nostalgia coming back really hard in board games right now. I mean, it's a little bit stuff from Nightmares Outside. It's got at least like the green on purple color scheme going on.
Have you seen Liches and Lasers?
No. Is that the same thing?
No, that's actually an RPG. Retroverse is what they're calling it. They're working on. They're supposed to get a Kickstarter before too long, but it's an RPG. It's a 5e OGL game, but they're like redoing everything. Huh. And like when we had them on, and I'm like, is this supposed to be you're in like virtual space? Is this? It's like all the stuff from 80s, and they weren't really too like forthcoming of what it is. They're like we're leaving it open ended. Like you do what you want with it. But the art just totally sells it. If you get when you get done or you can get a chance, just Google Liches and Lasers.
Liches and Lasers.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good weekend though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's all done in like that 80s style. It's so awesome. James Leslie, is the plans for Gruff retail eventually? It looks like one of those fun, twisted games for kids and adults alike.
Yeah, is there plans to Gruff retail eventually? Gruff has actually been in retail for a couple of years. So, go to your local hobby shop, and if they don't have it, tell them to pick up Gruff.
Do you guys sell it on your website?
Yeah, totally. StudioWo.com/store. You can get it there. And, of course, you can back the Kickstarter campaign, which is up right now for Stuff of Nightmares. But yeah, the original games are in retail. The newest game, Stuff of Nightmares, is probably not going to be going to retail. It's going to be a Kickstarter exclusive. It's going to be a more limited edition game, doing a more boutique sort of thing. But the original Game of Gruff is gonna stay in distribution for as long as they'll have me. until
they get rid of us or find something better.
They're like, why are we doing Monster Goats again?
Always the monster goats. Yeah, so, and as always, the links are in the description on YouTube and Facebook, guys. So you can, if you want to go stalk Brent all over the interwebs, you can, and you can go find the store. You can go to the Kickstarter. It's already packed.
Looks like this.
Oh, yeah, show off the box.
Yeah, so we make all of our boxes to look like one of the monsters from the game. So this one is, since it's Stuff of Nightmares, we have plushy nightmare goats, and so it's this tied up jaw of a stitchy monster thing. Rawr. It's got a cute little tail on the back. And then yeah, we got like our plushy monster goats, like, so that's one of the shepherds. I don't know if you can see that very well, but yeah, we got it's Wild Thing, and Custer's a good example of a monster goat. Looks like that. Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, they actually show up pretty good. Normally, I would have went to your website and grabbed and did like a screen share, but I've not been successful with screen shares since I've started using the encoder.
Oh yeah,
they get like a frozen us or a blank screen.
Ooh, I was just messing around with that, trying to do like a compiled double stream where I could be playing one side of the game and then someone somewhere else could be playing another side of the stream, and they could compile it together. It's amazing what technology can do, and it's also amazing how unintuitive and complicated it can be sometimes. But
yeah, I mean, with OBS and multiple cameras, you could probably do that pretty easy.
That's what we were doing. Yeah, we were using OBS, multiple cameras, and then combining it on KBM mod.
Okay.
And then, doing that.
So is that something that's up, or is that something you guys were working on?
It was streaming this morning, but it's going to be probably a pretty regular every morning thing. So I will post the link in the comments to the YouTube video when I have the next one coming up.
Oh, cool. So Fantasy Grounds College. Well, unfortunately, your question will not apply here. This is a tabletop game. This is not an RPG. They're always very aggressively helpful when it comes to Fantasy Grounds, and they're always trying to get new content in there. But I don't think there's any tabletop games in there, or at least not that kind anyway. Not an RPG.
Yeah, Gruff is a combat card game.
So how many goats are there? How many goats have you guys created so far?
That is a good question. It's I think we have about 200 characters total, I want to say, or maybe 90 characters total. So there's each set. The original game had I want to say 18 goats, 15 goats. It's 15 goats. This current set, Stuff of Nightmares, is another 15 goats, and then they have about half that again in shepherds. So there's a whole bunch of like goats and shepherds that you can play from. But basically every goat you pick has got their little mini deck of cards, and you choose 8 cards from each deck. So when I say like the set's got 15 goats, it has like 225 ability cards that you can choose from. And so there's a whole lot of deck building flexibility and choices you can make. Basically, like if you have an idea of like, oh, I want to make a cool combo deck with this goat, you can make it happen because there's just tons of toys for you to play with in the box.
Have you ever considered going beyond card games and maybe into a mini game?
Yeah.
They would make cool miniatures.
We actually made a mini in the original game. There's this mini gap tooth. Man, I usually have them on my desk. I can't see them right now. And then we are actually. You want to see something super top secret?
Super top secret. Ooh.
Yeah. Okay, so after Gruff sometime this year, we are going to be working on a game called Pirate Tanks of Skull Rock, and that is the mini that is in Pirate Tanks of Skull Rock. I don't know if you can see from there, but it's actually a tank that's been modded and hacked into a pirate ship. It's actually a dexterity game. You're gonna flick these around the board, trying to play capture the flag with your buddies.
Oh no, you're gonna move away from goats.
Yeah. But I have been thinking about doing like a goats minis game, like a minis combat game with monster goats. I think that would be fun. I like I do the 3D modeling stuff, and I'd really love to make 3D modeled monster goats. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Elfbait wants to know, what is the craziest goat in the bunch?
Ooh, Fluttermind. Fluttermind, the divine. So all of the goats are just they're monster goats, right? They're unintelligent little beastie things, except for Fluttermind. Fluttermind's intelligent, but unfortunately, the only thing he wants to talk about is himself and how awesome he is. So he's got like flavor text on his cards that are like, "Oh, the saddest thing in the world is to be Fluttermind because everyone else can bask in his radiance, but I cannot." Quote Fluttermind.
That's why there's mirrors.
Yep. We actually have this thing at our, whenever you meet us at a convention, if you come up to us and be like, "Oh, hail the Fluttermind," I'll yell, "Praise his glorious tentacles," and we'll give you like a free thing, like a playmat or a promo card or something like that.
Oh, he has tentacles?
Oh, yeah. He's like this giant mass of tentacles and wings and horns. He's, yeah, he's great. There's a whole faction of like Lovecraftian tentacle goats. You got Lovecraftian tentacle goats, Viking goats, plague goats, necro goats, kind of steampunk robo goats, and then the newest faction is the plushy nightmare goats. We cover all of our bases.
Yeah, of course there's Cthulhu goats, of course. There had to be Cthulhu goats. Cthulhu,
yeah, they
all
call
the
the
things.
deep things. We take all sort of fishy archetypes and throw them on there.
So Chris asks, how easy is it to pick up for like a beer and pretzels nights? So both me and Ted demoed the game, and I mean it seemed fairly easy. From what I recall, it was fairly easy to get into and start playing.
Yeah, I think the largest challenge in playing the game is deck building. Like if you have a demo deck, then it's the easiest. And Stuff of Nightmares actually has all of the cards labeled with a little symbol. And if you take all of the goats, shepherds, and ability cards that have the same symbol on it, it just makes a pre-made deck for you right off the bat. You can get in and start playing just in minutes. Like the gameplay system itself is super simple.
So Fantasy Grounds College actually is a pretty awesome question. Have you considered making an add-on or supplement for Goat Simulator?
I like the idea of doing a mod for Goat Simulator where you've just got this like horribly mutated goat with tentacles, but it just is the same gameplay. You're just like flopping around the world, just doing stuff, being a goat.
Even better is to like insert it somehow in other people's games without them knowing.
I'll write a virus to infect the game.
Oh, there we go. We can add it. We can add that to our marketing strategy.
Yeah, that'll be a stretch goal.
Elfbait said maybe the pirate ships have goat captains.
Maybe that's why they were. You know what? There's a pirate shepherd in Gruff. Maybe we need to do a crossover, this sort of thing. I'll have to approve that with my creative director, though.
Don't want you to get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble.
So you said you've seen graffiti popping up.
Yeah. Well, we made Gruff stickers, so we have Gruff like little Woe voice bubbles because we're Studio Woe, and then like we have like our Gaptooth sticker, and so I'll just be walking around Austin and see like the little Gaptooth sticker with a little Woe voice bubble coming up, and I'm like, I'm not legally responsible for that, but I think it's awesome. I'm completely down.
Well, you know, when the goats get out, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you don't have a lot of control over that.
They get unleashed.
So in our gaming world, I have an orc tribe called the Olingai, and they worship goats and they ride giant goats.
Oh, giant war goats!
They
war
do.
Goats are the best idea.
Well, they actually, as far as orcs go, they're not particularly warlike, but they are kind of primitive and savage, and they use the goats for everything.
Nice.
They're
a versatile animal.
Well, yeah, they get cheese and milk and meat, and they make good mounts. They can live pretty much anywhere. Yeah,
they eat anything too. So like you could be totally nomadic in like any biome you're in. The goats will just eat everything.
They're good.
So, yeah, they're good. Goats. I approve of them as a form of livestock. They're not. I was going to say they're not useless like horses, but I'm going to make enemies say so.
Horses got a lot of uses.
For a while. That's got to be sad, though, to be like...
Dog food and glue. And I am highly allergic to horses. The horse is actually a natural born enemy of me.
of the Nerdarchist.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be a really sad day to realize that you're an obsolete animal. It's just like, I've been outdated by technology. That's a bummer.
Maybe, or maybe they're like, finally.
Yeah, you can get this off.
It's not like they really signed up for that job anyway.
No, it's not. It's a good point.
One of my mom's friends had came over her house, and she had her horse, and I was just lifting the little kids and putting it on the horse's back, and before you know it, I was covered in hives and my eyes were swollen shut.
Oh no! I went to the Ren Fair here in Austin, the Sherwood Forest Fair, and my kids got to. I've got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they got to ride on the war horses. They had like the barding and stuff like that.
Oh,
and
cool.
Man, you would have thought that they were like at Disneyland. They were just like so lit up, so happy about being on these giant animals. And they had the time of their life, just like walking in a circle on a horse.
So apparently, horse meat is a big export of Canada. I did not know that.
I was not familiar with that. I'm actually a Canadian dual citizen. Lived there for a couple of years.
Oh, cool. And you can get it in the supermarket. Who knew? And I just want to say for those that are sending me hate, the horses threw the first punch. they attacked me first with their biological warfare. But yeah, we actually, behind our house, there's another property that joins to us, and it's they have a couple horses over there, and Otis the badass donkey.
Otis the badass donkey.
Yeah.
There was a comment earlier about the sticker vandalism. The Mighty Hobbs said, "Would that be graffiti?" I've never heard that before. I love that.
Now it's a thing. You have to incorporate that someplace. Maybe on the boxes.
Yep. Sell graffiti kits where you can vandalize with Gruff.
You need, yeah, there you go. The graffiti stretch goal.
Yep. Get a vinyl stencil, a can of spray paint, and a bunch of stickers.
And by the way, Nerdarchy does not condone vandalism in any shape, way, or form.
Neither does Studio Woe, but we appreciate it when it's done well.
There you go, when it's done well. So when are you need to make a book of Gruff goats for D&D?
Oh yeah, like with the stats and CRs and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and the herders, that would be a great.
Yeah,
I think that would be a great little product.
Oh, I actually was working on a Gruff RPG for a little while, and the question was always like, is Gruff close enough to D&D that we could make like a 5th edition content for Gruff, or does it need to be like its own thing from scratch? And I kind of feel like I'd like it to be a campaign setting inside of 5th edition, and just like add a Gruff class or Gruff monsters. I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, I would probably do them as monsters. I mean, maybe the herders, they could be a class or something.
I would do new trolls too, because the trolls in Gruff they're kind of like CR18, CR25 kind of trolls. They're like troll gods. So yeah, adding trolls, goats, and shepherds, that would be really good.
I know what you do. You run you do a campaign setting where the Gruffs have finally evolved to their highest peak, so the herders have taken over all the kingdoms.
Yeah,
and they're kind of like replacing like archmages and liches, and necromancers. So they're like, and plus they're all weird and freaky anyway and crazy. So they don't sound like good guys to me.
No, they're not. There are no good guys in Gruff. What I've kind of realized is that evil is mostly an aesthetic choice. We've got purple and black skull-clad shepherds and goats, but they're not the worst guys in Gruff. Like the Viking-looking guys are actually like way worse. They're like pillaging and burning and marauding the whole world in Gruff. But people like them because they're pretty, I guess.
Because they're Vikings.
Yeah, they're Vikings. But Vikings are terrible people. I say this as being Viking-esque myself. They were not nice. They did not nice things to a lot of people.
It was just an occupational choice, I guess. And it was their side job anyway.
That's
It's a
true. It
side
wasn't a
gig.
primary gig.
Yeah.
They were all like agrarian during most of the time, probably with goats. I would think that if you could do anything in Norway, it'd probably be herd goats.
James Leslie, collectible card game. No, no, right? It's not
No,
collectible.
not collectible. So it is. I'm not allowed to call it an LCG because that's owned by Asmodee. But yeah, it's like it's an LCG. It's a self-contained box that contains all of the components that you need. There's no scaling rarity, no random packs, nothing. It's just all one self-contained box, and you'll have everything that you need for multiple people to play. There are expansions like more goat games, but they just give you more goats and more shepherds. And yeah, they're again not we don't have any pre-built-in rarity.
So Landon says so. TCG.
I use GCG. I call it a Gruff compatible game. So I think yeah. So if you like see the box, you'll open it up, and then inside of the box will be your goats. So like Stitchy, and then so then you'll have the ability cards for the goat, and then you'll have the goat character card, like Stitchy over there.
So do you have a favorite goat yourself?
You know, I feel like I'm contractually obligated to like Fluttermind the best, just because I feel like he'd come after me if I didn't. Do I have a favorite goat? I think Fluttermind is definitely not like the first one I reach to when I build a deck. I really like the new, actually that Stitchy guy that I was just pulled up. He is really good at controlling the tempo of the game. So the Stuffkin aren't necessarily natively the strongest goats, but what they're really good at is making sure that they get to do what they want to do by like constantly keeping being aggressive. So one of the cool things about Gruff is that you'll attack, and then kind of like in Final Fantasy Tactics, there's like a delay before your attack will resolve, and your opponent can take their turn during that pause to do whatever they want, which makes tempo really important. Like if you're attacking, your opponent has to constantly be reacting, and then you can kind of maintain aggression control over the game. That's one strategy, and Stuffkin are super good at that strategy. So I like Stitchy because he's really good at doing that.
Do you have a favorite shepherd?
Oh, I got into a lot of trouble with this, but like Gristle is kind of like my avatar. Like he's my avatar on Facebook, and I let it leak that like at the end of the last expansion, it gets clarified in the flavor text of this expansion, but I actually killed him off. He jumped in heroically to save the players from the trolls. So the way that the Gruff campaigns work is that the Kickstarter campaign actually controls the story of the game. So as stretch goals get unlocked, like Gruffs and Shepherds get recruited into their herd, and trolls get defeated if you unlock them as stretch goals. But if they don't get unlocked, then they roam free and they do terrible things. So the very, very last ultimate troll escaped last time, and he killed a whole bunch of characters on the way out, so including my main guy, Gristle. So I really like Gristle, though. I think he's great.
How did you determine who lived and who died?
It just seemed really appropriate for the story. So his kind of like godson Connery was invading the plague area, and the plague goats, the Funk Fiends, they got their powers by trapping trolls and then pulling troll snot out of them and injecting it into their goats to make nasty plague goats. And so they were at war, but the facility where they're keeping all the trolls was left unguarded, and the trolls broke out and they just basically killed everybody. And so it's made sense for Gristle to jump in to try to save Connery so Connery could get it out. So he kind of like Gandalfed in at the last minute, like running down the hill to try to save Connery from Blabbersack, the Uber troll. And,
so where are these narratives taking place?
Well, like where in the world?
Or like, are they only in your headcanon, or like people who are fans of Gruff can see these stories?
Well, there's several different ways that you can interact with the lore. One is like actually Kickstarter updates, because like I said, the Kickstarter actually, the campaign controls the narrative. So as things occur, like I just explain what events like I saw and like how that fits into the game world through the Kickstarter updates, and then it's through the flavor text and also through like some narrative things inside the rule books. We have a couple really exciting projects coming together in the near future that will make narrative add a lot more narrative and make it a lot more visible, but it's kind of too early to say what that big thing is, but there's something on the horizon.
You don't have to comment, but just from what you were saying about like the narrative and the way the way the game is put together and looks, like I envision some kind of like story art book for Gruff. You don't have to say
a type of book that has a lot of art might be in the future.
Yeah. But yeah, that actually sounds pretty cool. It does sound like something too like kids would like, because the art is colorful.
Yeah, especially the stuff in Nightmares. It feels a little bit younger, though the game's listed as 11 up. It's pretty violent, so so I recommend it for basically like, yeah, if you've got a head for tactical games, then really you can play it at any age. I've gotten my butt kicked consistently by a 9-year-old at my local hobby shop. He's just really good at those kind of games, though. I wouldn't say he's typical though.
So do you make a lot of forays into the hobby shops or game stores?
I try to. Yeah, I try to. I like to keep it like thriving and alive at the hobby shops. I always make sure that on the campaigns we have a retail tier so they can get copies of the games. Though, and like I said, the games in international distribution. We have retailers in Australia and the UK and all over the world, France. And
so, Landon, if you go to Studio Woe, there's actually a ton of art up there. And due to technical difficulties I've had in the past, usually I would like screen share stuff like that with you guys. But for the last time I tried screen sharing earlier, it didn't work. So
I could probably share the link real quick if that's easier for people.
It's right in the description, and it probably won't let you share a link.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just go to studiowo.com and then go to the gallery and then
see all the arts. And there's probably some art up on that Kickstarter page as well. You guys can check out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some cool art.
I suspect.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's just a really cool brand. The whole Gruff. There's so much you guys can do with that.
Yeah. It's developed as an intellectual property. It's like an IP, so like we can do a lot of things with it, and it's a really flexible world because the story of Gruff doesn't take place on any one specific world. It happens in this place called the Betwixt, which is like, if you think of like the space that's not Earth and not Valhalla, it's like the space in between. Is where these like giant interdimensional bridges happen that are guarded by these trolls. But the goats killed all the trolls, and now there's this kind of like commerce happening between shepherds and with their monster goats, like starting to connect these worlds together. So if I'm like, I want like a majestic unicorn land, I can just like add that, and it'll link into the Betwixt, and I can add things. So that's one of the nice things that we did with stuff from Nightmares. We were like the Dreamlands, like the Citadel of Respite, where they keep the catalog of dreams. Every time someone has a dream, it's registered in this catalog. And that's the new world, and like you can just interact with it.
Friggin' haters, like I feel like this conversation would have been great on April Fool's Day. Yeah, we try not to work on Sundays or major holidays.
I was actually worried about it when I was like, I'm kickstarting this on April 3rd, and I hope people don't think this is a joke.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
If it is a joke, it's a very serious kind of joke.
Now I want the shepherds to get a hold of the unicorn world and seeing a unicorn expansion.
Oh man, we'd have like glitter paint on the box, so it's just sparkly.
Oh, it'd be great. But I want them to be the unicorns all get horribly mutated like the goats do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally down with the mutated monster unicorns. I want to say that there's some sort of like mythological connection between goats and unicorns as well.
Oh, you know what? I don't know if you remember. What is it? Barnum Valley. What the hell was the name of that circus?
Barnum and Bailey Big Top Circus.
Yeah.
Or Ringling Brothers.
One year they tried to. They tried saying they had a unicorn, and they kind of wheeled out this goat where the horns had twisted to one, yeah. And that was their unicorn.
There's some goats that do that, where like the horn shape can be kind of malleable. Um, that's yeah, that's kind of messed up though. So someone asks how feasible would it be to have an actual goat in the studio with me as a mascot? Well, it would depend on how quickly we can get out of the restraining order.
It's actually, you know, they're supposed to make pretty good pets. It's
really?
I guess
In your house?
yeah, I've seen people do that. Yeah, and they have the pygmy goats, the little ones too.
Oh yeah, that might work.
That's what my family wants. They want one of the little ones. Now the feigning goats are just hilarious. It's just
that is not a good adaptation, evolutionarily speaking. I don't think that.
No. Well, I think Old World chameleons, they have something similar. It's weird. Like they just fall. Like when
really?
Yeah, when a predator, they just fall. I'm like, best defense.
Just play dead, but I would think that dead things are easier to eat. So
yeah, and not only that, the chameleons are arboreal pretty much. So yeah. Just falling means a fall.
If I had if I was had a bigger yard, I would consider having like a little goat in the yard. I think that would be good. I live in an area in Austin where it's just basically like Mad Max. Like you can just do whatever you want with your house. So I could have a goat. My neighbors have chickens, but it's suburban. Like we're just in a suburban area, but we're between county lines. So like laws don't apply here. So I could have
you live in the Badlands of Austin.
Yeah. It's like this little island stuck between all these HOAs with like all their like strict laws, but we're in this little nugget in between everything. We're not even in a county. Like Texas is kind of weird that way, where there's like actually gaps in between the counties. I'm in one of those.
One of the guys in one of the RPG groups that I would frequent was a goat farmer. Yeah, so they breed goats and stuff.
It's a marketable thing, I guess.
It absolutely is. You just need a teacup goat.
Oh yeah?
I have no idea. I'm just making shit up.
Teacup goat. I did a lot of goat research because like there was a little phase in the Gruff development cycle where I was like, what if every faction in Gruff was like a specific breed of goat? And so I did a bunch of research that way. I really quickly abandoned that idea because it was.
You're like, Cthulhu is so much more interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
I'd rather have goater cycles. I have a goater cycle. I have Gusto the goater cycle. Half goat, half motorcycle.
Oh, badass. That's kind of funny. Like I said, I like it. I think it's a good IP. You can do a lot of stuff with it.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, so, and that's what I was going to ask you about. Is there a community that's sprung up around it?
Oh yeah, the Gruffians. Yeah, we've got a lot of really motivated Gruff players. We've had some crazy fan art too. We had a family that made their own Funk Fiend goats. We've had people do like ZBrush sculpted super high res versions of some of the goats. We had a lady just recently do a PopCap vinyl of one of the shepherds. Like we have a very like there's some members of the Gruff community that are just like super into goats. I would not want to get between them and their monster goats. They're passionate.
Where do they collect?
Where do they collect? Well, actually, a lot of it happens just on Facebook at the Studio Woe page on Facebook. Okay, and that's where people are like gathering together and posting the about it. But there's actually a lot of communities. There's a subreddit for Gruff, just Reddit/r/Gruff. There's a fan made wiki about Gruff. But one of the cool things that we do with Gruff is a program called the Shepherds of Woe, where basically you just sign up for this thing, and basically if you do anything online to promote Gruff, like that could be like answering people's questions, posting deck lists, making fan art, doing a recipe about Gruff, like whatever you want to do, literally anything, and you'll earn points, and then you can redeem those points for promo cards. So we actually get a lot of enthusiasm that way of people just doing cool stuff and posting that. You can find the info about the Shepherds of Woe off of the Studio Woe page. So Studio Woe/Shepherds of Woe. So
that you guys have some promo cards out there floating around.
Yeah. We made a Santa Claus and a Krampus shepherd. Like we do one of those basically every year around the holidays, and they're super strong. And and so they're promo card only right now. Eventually, I'll print them. Maybe with this set we'll print them. But yeah, they're Krampus is like this like goat killing goat monster with a big long blue tongue and the chains, and Kringle is like our Santa Claus guy, and it's like if Santa Claus was a hot rod racer. It's he looks like a cross between like one of those Rat Fink kind of guys and like the Big Lebowski. He's got like slippers and shorts. The
Nice.
big old beard.
So that brings us up on the hour mark. Parting words.
Thanks for coming in and checking out and listening to me talk about Gruff Stuff of Nightmares. It's a plushy nightmare goat game where you get to battle your friends with your custom herd of dream goats, and you can find it on Kickstarter right now. This is this one campaign is a Kickstarter exclusive campaign and is only going to be running for a total of 2 weeks. So hop on now so that you don't miss your chance of getting in on it. Gruff Stuff of Nightmares on Kickstarter.
Where can people find you for the con season?
Ooh, so I'm going to be at Origins. So please come by my booth at Origins. I'm going to be at Gen Con, and if I can swing it, I'll be at PAX Unplugged as soon as they announce availability at PAX Unplugged. But for sure, I'm going to be at Gen Con. We're going to be holding our World Tournament at Gen Con this year, and then and at Origins as well in Columbus.
Awesome. So, I'll be at some of those. I'm sure I'll catch up with you for sure. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks, everyone who's been hanging out in the chat. Appreciate you guys. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Thanks, Dave.